Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com. Today we're going to take a look at the new 3-rail O-scale New York Central water level steam freight set from Lionel. So, the New York Central water level freight set was first offered by Lionel in their 2012 Volume 2 catalog, and then they finally started shipping these things off to dealers in late 2013. Now, I said that this is a set, but for those of you who may be new to the hobby, I feel I should clarify that a little bit. There are generally two types of sets in this hobby, starter sets and premium sets. A starter set is just that. It's a set that is geared and marketed towards beginners, towards people who are not in the hobby but want to get into the hobby. And so the starter set has everything you need to get going. It has the engine, the pieces of rolling stock, the track, the power supply. These days, most of them come with a remote control of some sort, and you may even get a couple small accessories like some telephone poles or some billboards or something like that. And because the starter sets are geared towards beginners, they are also relatively inexpensive. So they range anywhere from $150 all the way up to $400 or $500 depending on the quality. This is not a starter set. This is a premium set. Premium sets are geared towards established hobbyists like me, people who already have track and a power supply and a control system of some sort, and who are looking to add a really nice train set to their existing collection. And so the premium sets don't come with everything you need to get going. There's no track, there's no power supply, there's no remote control or anything like that. All you get is the engine and the pieces of rolling stock. Now, you may think that because of that, they should be cheaper than the starter sets because there's less stuff in the box, but actually it's the opposite. Premium sets are very expensive, and it's because the stuff that is in the box is very, very high quality. The engine is all die-cast metal, lots of high-end detailing, lots of nice digital sounds, and the rolling stock is very high quality with die-cast metal trucks and couplers and a high level of detail on every single car. And so for that reason, the premium sets are much more expensive than the starter sets. So if you're just getting into the hobby and you're looking for a set to get you going that has everything you need, this is not the set for you. But if you're already into the hobby and you're looking for a great set for your collection, this may be for you because this is a fantastic premium set. So anyway, what I'm going to do is start off by talking about the engine, and then we'll get into the pieces of rolling stock, and then finally we'll take the set for a spin around the layout. So the engine that comes with the set is a New York Central Mohawk. It's an L2A Mohawk type steam engine to be exact. The Mohawk was a 482 type steam engine. That means it had 4 wheels up front, 8 drive wheels, and 2 wheels on the trailing truck. Now, the 482 configuration to other railroads at the time, that was known as a mountain type steam locomotive, but because the New York Central ran these engines on the low-lying water level route, they didn't think the nickname Mountain was very appropriate, and so they gave these things the nickname Mohawk, named after the Mohawk River that the New York Central ran by, and so that's how these things came to be known as Mohawks. The Mohawks were very popular with the New York Central. They built 600 of them over the years. There are many variations. This is the L2A variation. These were built between 1925 and 1930. But there are lots of other variations, and you can imagine that would be the case with 600 of them being built. There's going to be a lot of different variations in the steam engines over the years. But again, a very popular engine, and so that makes it a very popular model for model railroaders. So when it comes to Lionel's rendition of the L2A Mohawk, the overall length of this model is 24.5 inches. The combined weight of the engine and the tender is 10 pounds 7 ounces. This engine has about 2 pounds 5 ounces of pulling power, not bad, and the minimum curve needed to operate this engine is 0.54. Under the hood, the engine is powered by a single flywheel motor. There's also an operating smoke unit in the front of the engine, and then inside the tender you'll find the electronics packages for Lionel's legacy control system as well as legacy rail sounds. There are 3 ways to operate this engine. The preferred method is to use Lionel's legacy command system because that will give you access to all of the advanced features of the engine. You can also operate the engine using Lionel's classic TMCC command system, or you can operate the engine the old-fashioned way with just a transformer and some track. This engine has lots of nice details on it, so let's go in for a closer look. Starting at the front of the engine, as you can see, it looks great. Lots of detail all around. There's a separately applied coupler cut bar here that has a chain that goes down through a dummy scale coupler, And of course, if you want to double head the engine, you can swap out that dummy scale coupler for a dummy O-gauge coupler that's also packaged with the engine. Moving up, we've got some nicely detailed steps right here, and then we've got the start of the separately applied handrails that run down either side of the boiler. The front of the boiler looks fantastic. There's a separately applied grab iron down here and lots of great rivet detail. There are lighted number boards on either side of the operating headlight, and then we've also got operating marker lights up here and a very detailed feed water heater above that. And just like on all high-end Lionel steam engines, the front of the boiler swings open like that. An interesting side note is that if you look, the road number on this engine is 2797, but that's not the road number that was shown in the 2012 Volume 2 catalog. In the catalog, they had the road number as 2867, but I guess before the set went to production, they changed the road number for some reason. I'm not sure why they did that. It's not that uncommon. Lionel has done that lots of times over the years, but I thought I'd point it out. There's lots of great detail in the area under the cab, around the firebox, and the trailing truck is very detailed as well. The firebox on this engine does come with the variable ash pan glow effect, and the way that works is that when you start the engine up, there's a red glow coming from the ash pan, and then as the engine gets up speed and goes faster and faster, that red glow becomes more intense. Looking down both sides of the engine, we've got legible builder's plates and a number of separately applied and cast-in details such as handrails, valves, and pipes and so forth. It looks great. On the exterior of the cab, there's a little window right here and one on the other side. We've also got a couple of separately applied metal grab irons on each side, and there are clear plastic inserts in the windows. On the inside of the cab, there are two hand-painted crew figures and a number of hand-painted valves and gauges on the back head. We've also got a couple of lighting effects in the cab. There's a red glow in the firebox when the engine is in operation, and there's also an overhead light in the cab. That light is on when the engine is at a standstill, and it turns off when the engine starts moving. Up on top of the engine, you can see some of the detail on the feed water heater here. And then behind that, we've got a fan-driven smoke unit. And as always, to load smoke fluid into the smoke unit, you just pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. Moving back, we've got some really nice detailing here, and then a little swinging bell, and it's got a wire lanyard attached to it that goes all the way back to the cab. And then we've got the sand dome here with some nice cast-in details on it. And then toward the back, we've got a hand-painted whistle right here, some hand-painted safety valves, a little dynamo generator right here, and then there are 3 vents on top of the cab that open up like that. Here's a look at the back of the engine. You can see some of the nice detailing on the back head. We've got a couple more windows with clear plastic inserts in them, and a couple more separately applied grab irons. And then down here is the drawbar, and there's the infrared sensor that allows the engine to communicate with the electronics in the tender. Here's a look at the underside of the engine. There are 3 pickup rollers here in the middle. There are traction tires on the rear set of drivers. And then on the underside of the cab, right here, is the smoke unit on-off switch. And then on the other side is the switch for Odyssey speed control and the TMCC run program switch. Now, the fact that all of these switches are on the underside of the engine instead of up top means that this is most likely an older tooling that Lionel has reused, and that's okay. That's how they make a profit. That does it for the engine. Now let's take a look at the tender. On the sides, we've got nicely detailed die-cast metal side frames on the trucks, great rivet detail on both sides of the tender, and a nice crisp New York Central logo as well. Here's a look at the front of the tender. There are some nice cast-in details here. We've got a couple of separately applied metal grab irons here and here. Nice step detail down here. And then this is the other infrared sensor that allows the engine to communicate with all of the electronics in the tender. The back of the tender looks great. We've got some nice steps down here, separately applied metal grab irons, a ladder, and a coupler cut bar. There's an operating backup light as well as operating marker lights. And then down here is the electrocoupler that can be thrown from the Legacy or TMCC remote. On the top of the tender, there's a real coal load up front. And then we've got a nice little ladder here, some nice separately applied grab irons and so forth all around here. And then this hatch lifts up to reveal the master volume control for the engine. On the underside of the tender, there are 2 pickup rollers, 1 per truck. There are 2 speakers for the sound system, 1 here and 1 here. And then we've got some nice add-on details down here as well. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the pieces of rolling stock that come with the set. There are 4 pieces: a box car, a tank car, a coal hopper, and a caboose. So let's start off by taking a look at the box car. So here is the Michigan Central box car that comes with the set, and this is probably my favorite car in the set, and I don't really know why. I think maybe it's because it looks more like a detailed model than any of the other cars, and that's not to put down the other cars. They look great as well. I'm just really drawn to this car. It's very well made. It's got die-cast metal sprung trucks and couplers. The undercarriage is very detailed on this car. And then there's this great step detail all around the sides and on the top of the car. The brake wheel assembly is very well done. And then you've got this molded in detailing on the car that makes it look like a wood-sided box car. And then, of course, the doors on either side of the box car open up like that. Next up, we've got the Beacon Oil Company tank car. Again, it's very well made, die-cast metal sprung trucks and couplers. Nice brake wheel here. There's a metal handrail going all the way around. Nice detailing on the underside as well as all around the car and up top. And then we've also got these little warning signs on all 4 sides of the car. Moving on, the next car in the set is a Boston and Maine coal hopper. And this car is a little different from the other cars in the set, because this car features all die-cast metal construction. So pretty much everything you're seeing here is metal, including the trucks and the couplers. In fact, the only plastic items here are the coal load up top and these little hatches down here. Everything else is metal. Now, you may be wondering, if the other cars in the set are plastic bodied, why is this car using die-cast metal? Well, there's a simple explanation. Lionel has been making these really nice die-cast metal coal cars for many years now. In fact, I've got several others in my collection. And so when it came time to make this set, I can only guess that Lionel decided that it would be less expensive to simply reuse the die-cast metal tooling rather than retooling the car for plastic. And so as a result, we get a little bonus and we get a die-cast metal freight car in the set. So the hatches down here open up like that, which is nice. And then the plastic coal load up here can be removed if you want, like that. Last but not least, we come to the caboose. Overall, this is a pretty nice caboose. It's not the best caboose I've ever seen, but it's not the worst either. I'd say it's right there in the middle. It has die-cast metal sprung trucks and couplers. All around the caboose, there are separately applied grab irons and so forth. The ladders on either end are metal, and there's nice simulated wood grain on every side of the caboose. The interior of the caboose is lighted, and it also features an operating smoke unit. Now, it's not a fancy fan-driven smoke unit like we've got up on the engine, but it's one of those simplified smoke units like Lionel typically uses in their cabooses, where you've got the smokestack and you put the smoke fluid down the stack, and then there's a heating element, and it sort of smolders there, and then you get a little wisp of smoke out of the stack. So it's not anything fancy, but it is nice. Now, on the underside of the caboose, there are some nice cast-in details, and then we've got 2 switches down here. This switch here controls the interior lighting, and this switch here allows you to turn the smoke unit on and off. The one downside about this caboose is that even though the interior is lighted, the interior is not detailed. So when the caboose lights up and you look in the window, there's nothing inside except a bunch of wires and some light bulbs. So it would have been nice if they had finished the interior. They tend to do that on their high-end cabooses. I'm not sure why they didn't do it on this caboose, but my guess is that, as always, it comes down to economics. And what's probably going on here is that this is an older tooling that they're reusing, and they simply didn't want to invest the extra money in finishing the interior of the caboose. And I understand that. I know they have to make a profit. They need to stay in business. But still, it would have been nice if the interior was finished. But it's not that big of a deal, and I wouldn't let it deter you from buying this set. And you know, it's not all bad, because one of these days, maybe for a rainy weekend project, I'll open this caboose up and fix the problem. I'll do one of 2 things. I will either add details to the inside, add some benches and some figures and so forth. Or, more likely, what I'll do is I will simply replace the clear plastic windows with frosted glass, and that way you'll still see the light coming from inside the caboose, but you won't be able to see anything inside. But again, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. It's not a deal breaker or anything like that. I just wanted to point it out. And I also want to point out that this was not a surprise. In the catalog, Lionel never stated that the interior of the caboose would be finished. So it's not like they said one thing and did another. This is what they intended to do from the get-go. So it is what it is, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay, the last thing we're going to do before we start the engine up and take the set for a spin around the layout is BF-IMO, best feature in my opinion. Well, this time around, it was really easy to pick the best feature. In my opinion, the best feature on the set is the whistle on the engine. It sounds amazing. And you know, I don't even know if it's the correct whistle for the Mohawk. I'm not an expert on whistles, but this thing sounds so good that I don't even care if it's prototypical. It's that good, and it is quickly becoming one of the favorite whistles in my collection. So for me, the best feature by far is the whistle on the engine, and you'll hear it in just a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and crank this thing up.
This is the dispatcher. Do you copy?
Copy that, dispatcher. Over.
Okay, start her up. Stand by for track orders.
Copy that. Ready to start this trip. Out.
Okay, first up, let's hear the great whistle on this engine. Again, I'm a big fan of it. In and of itself, it sounds really good, but what really makes it great is the quilling action on the Lionel Legacy remote. So if you're going to run this engine conventionally or with the classic TMCC command system, it'll probably sound pretty good, but my guess is that it won't sound quite as good as if you can run it with the Legacy remote and get that great quilling action on it. So let's give it a listen. I'm going to try to do my best. I hope I do it justice, but trust me, it sounds even better when you hear it in person. I kind of think it sounds like an old air raid siren, but here goes. Okay, now let's give a listen to the bell. There are two engine sound effects that can be activated from the Legacy remote. The first one is the sound of water being added to the tender. And then we've got the sound of the cylinder steam release. Last but not least, let's hear some of the always controversial crew talk. I know a lot of you guys out there don't like it. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. But if you don't like it, you don't have to use it.
Track is clear. Dispatcher over.
Thank you much. Cleared outbound. Out.
Dispatcher here. You're cleared outbound. Over.
Understood. Out. Dispatcher, I'm made up. Can we depart to the main line? Over.
Negative. Please stand by. Over.
Roger that. Standing by. Out.
This is the dispatcher. Stand by. Over.
Copy, dispatcher. We're waiting. Out.
Okay, now comes the fun part. Let's go ahead and roll it out. Okay, that about wraps it up for this review. This is a gorgeous set, and I'm really happy that I got one. In my opinion, the only two things they could have done to make this set better would be to have the smoking whistle effect on the engine and a detailed interior for the caboose. But even without those features, it's still a great set, and I highly recommend it. And keep in mind that when I ordered this set, I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew it would not have the smoking whistle, and I knew that it would not have a detailed interior on the caboose, and yet I still ordered the set, and I still love it. Now, as far as the lack of the smoking whistle goes, that was just luck of the draw, because they happened to make this set in the 2 or 3 years where they decided to stop putting these smoking whistles into their engines. I'm happy to say they've brought that back for 2014, but this just doesn't have the smoking whistle, and it's no big deal. It's still a great set, and I would still buy it if I had it to do all over again. Now, if you're interested in purchasing this set, the retail price is just under $1,600. And personally, I think that price is a tad high. I think if the set had the smoking whistle and had a detailed interior on the caboose, the $1,600 price tag would make a little more sense. But without those features, I would have liked to seen this thing around maybe $1,200 or $1,300. But keep in mind that if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get a decent discount off that retail price. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite train store, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at www.legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model or any other O-Gauge trains and to meet other O-Gauge modelers, check out the O-Gauge Railroading Magazine online forum at ogrforum.ogaugerr.com. And now, Eric's Trains presents Stupid Engine Tricks. Watch what happens when an attractive woman walks by this engine.